This is Rostra, the St. Theodore Guerin Junior Classical League podcast, where we bring the lessons of classical study into the light for the benefit of all.
Welcome back to another episode of Rostra. It's another one of those episodes where we have two guests with us. We have Anna Kolb and Eva Klinker. And ladies, you are talking about something that is absolutely core to Roman history. I think if anybody knows anything about Roman history, this is probably something that some people have heard of. So first of all, what's your topic? Why did you pick it?
We picked the Seven Kings of Rome, and we mostly picked it because we've heard about, like, a few of the kings that we were interested about, like, the other ones that we haven't heard a little bit about, and more in detail about the ones we have heard about.
Yeah, sounds good. Seven Kings of Rome. People know the seven hills of Rome. Seven seem to pop up everywhere in Roman history and mythology and all this kind of stuff. So you say there are ones that you have heard of, some that you have not heard of or don't know or hadn't heard as much about. Who are the ones that you already had heard of?
Obviously, we heard more of Romulus, because the first king, and also the last, Tarquinius Superbus. Yeah,
so the first and the last, typical, right? The ones that get a lot of attention there. Obviously we want to hear about some of the others. Anything in particular you want to say about those two? We'll kind of start on the two extremes, the first and the last, and then we certainly want to get to these others.
Well, Romulus, he was very much, like, into, like, the war and, like, more aggressive, like, and he and his brother, like, they, like, started Rome. They, like, argued basically over what hill, and then he started building on the hill he wanted to be on, and then his brother and him started fighting, and it ended up killing his brother, and then it was, like, set him off for a little bit, and then he continued to, like, build Rome, and he started a bunch of stuff, and I think that's why a lot of people have heard of him, because he established Rome.
He established it, and again, you're talking about the realm of legend at this point, right? You're talking 753 BC, so mid-8th century, so nearly 3,000 years ago from our standpoint. We don't have accurate records for this stuff. Legend is that they're the sons of Mars, the god of war. So you would expect kind of warlike guy, first king, and so forth. What about the last guys, Tarquinius Superbus?
So he was he wasn't a very good king, and he was very one-sided, and when people disagreed with him, he didn't like it, and he often, like, overthrew them. He actually had his father killed, along with his wife's help, by throwing him downstairs and stabbing him, which isn't very... no, I wouldn't say that's a very good king.
That's a polite way to put it. Yeah, that's a polite way to put it. Do you remember what Superbus means, or did you run across that?
I didn't.
Superbus means arrogant. And so just in what you said, I mean, just, not listening to other people, just clearly a very arrogant guy, even to the point that people called him that.
Yeah, and there are some people that noticed this. Like, there's a guy that did notice this, but then Tarquinius Superbus made it look like he was trying to kill him, but before he did that, Tarquinius overthrew him, and his downfall was actually him and his family were chased out of Rome.
Yeah, so definitely did not end well for them. Okay, so those are the two extremes, first and last. What about Kings 2 through 6? So tell us a little bit about these guys and share with us, what's going on.
The second king was Numa Pompilius, and he was very different than Romulus. He was very peaceful. He didn't like war. He sold a lot of Rome to like poor people so they could like start farming instead of like being in the army and stuff. And he very much wanted people to not be in the war mindset and like be away from violence. And he set up a lot of like the religious calendar and stuff for definitely people associate Numa with religion, setting up the festivals and that kind of thing, and even arts and that sort of stuff. So good guy. Yeah. And then the third king was Tullus Hostilius, and he was very his name basically kind of means very hostile, and he was very different than Numa. And it said that he kind of like undid some of the peacefulness that Numa had, and he wanted everyone to be in a war. He like wanted to start a war, and he kind of did with the Albians. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
the Albans.
The Albans.
Yep.
And he like kind of like pushed on war with them, and he didn't really take the religious calendars, like the religious stuff, seriously. He thought he was above the gods. Yep. And so when he died, people thought he was struck with a lightning from Jupiter or Zeus, because he was like didn't do any of the.
And you're noticing a pattern, right? These guys seem to kind of go warfare, then kind of peace, then back to war, and they're kind of going back and forth there. Certainly, we think about that kind of expansionist with his war, trying to expand Rome's territory there. So, all right, so that's Kings 2 and 3.
So 4 we have Ancus Marcus, and he's also one of the other peaceful ones. He reigned from 640 to 617 BCE. And he was actually really good friends with the second king, Numa Pompilius. Yeah. And again, during his time of reign, he didn't have there was actually no wars, and he actually died of natural causes, nothing too dark.
And honestly, that's something worth noting in these days, or in those days when people were often assassinated or struck by a lightning bolt by the gods or whatever. This guy just dies of natural causes. So he was a good guy, built stuff, built bridges, very much in the infrastructure of Rome and that sort of stuff. So yeah, so that's Ancus. Who's up next?
Then we have Tarquinius Superbus, who reigned from 616 to 578 BCE. And he just he did a lot over his time. Like, he wasn't born a Roman, but he was actually an Etruscan. But he became Roman, and he was a good military leader, and he established the scepter, which is like a staff kind of thing.
Yes, exactly, yes.
And he also introduced the purple fabric that people wore, and rings that were worn by senators and sacrificial rites. So
yeah, you're starting to get some more of the if you think about it, just more of the trappings and the signs of leadership and royalty and that sort of thing. And again, as you said, not native-born Romans. So Rome is starting to expand now out into Italy and taking in the area of Etruria, which is where he was from. And then King number 6.
We have Servius Tullius.
Yep.
Who was 578 to 537 BCE. And he was actually born a slave, and he worked his way up through the higher classes. A woman actually said that he was meant to be the next king, because one time his head was covered in flames, and he wasn't injured at all. So that was a sign that probably he was special, so he should be the next king. He did build many temples, and he created the census, which basically divided Rome into 5 different classes.
Yes.
Based on your age and wealth. And again, he was assassinated. He was assassinated by his daughter and her husband, who was, we already talked about, Tarquinius Superbus.
Right. And so, yeah, the thing about Servius, if you think about it for Roman history, he's kind of our Abraham Lincoln. Everybody loves the Abraham Lincoln story. Poor kid, grew up, rural, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, ends up becoming a lawyer and then becomes president of the United States, right? Same thing for this kid. This kid started off life as a slave. Admittedly, if your head catches on fire and you don't burn, that does seem to be a sign of something special.
Yes.
And so exactly, they thought that maybe he was marked out by the gods for some kind of special leadership there. So a neat little overview. Certainly, I think it's worth bringing out some of these kings that a lot of people don't know. Again, we often think about the first and the last. Anything you want to say just overall about the 7 kings before we wrap this one up?
Okay. I just think that they definitely helped to build Rome, although there were some that did kind of lead to the downfall, but they are definitely they had to be there for
Sure.
Yeah.
no different from our presidents, senators, governors, right? I mean, you've
Yeah.
got some that are good, some that are less good, some that really advance the cause of the country, others that seem to take us backward. It's the same thing. Yeah.
I was just gonna say I feel like they were really important for the history of Rome. I feel like they were a big part of like establishing Rome and stuff. But I think that it's good that they don't have kings anymore because some of them were so bad and some of them like created such downfall.
If a king is good, it's really a good way to go. If a king is bad, it's like nothing you can do about it because it's all in this one person. And so obviously that ended, became a republic, which became the model then for our own government. And everybody really thought that the republic was a great idea. So, ladies, very, very nice episode. I think that's going to benefit a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Rostra. You may check out all our episodes on Spotify and follow us on social media at GarinJCL. That's at GuerinJCL.